The dust hung thick in the late afternoon air, golden shafts of sunlight slanting through the forest canopy like prison bars. From the underbrush, she appeared barefoot, bloodied and silent, a girl no older than 16. Her hair was tangled with twigs and dried leaves, her clothes torn at the seams, stained red and brown. Her steps were tentative, almost spectral, like she didn't quite believe the road was real beneath her. She blinked hard at the sudden openness, squinting into the light as if it hurt. For a second, no one moved. Then a car crept to a halt. The driver rolled down his window, unsure whether to speak or call for help. The girl didn't flinch. Her eyes, wide and glassy, locked on the vehicle like it might vanish if she blinked. She didn't wave, didn't cry, just stood there, thin arms limp at her sides, dirt crusted into the skin of her legs, a crusted wound on her temple drying in the sun. A roadside fruit vendor dropped his mango and shouted, "Hey, girl, you all right?" He stepped toward her, but she didn't respond. A murmur rippled through the growing crowd. More cars slowed, people getting out, phones in hand, whispering, wondering. Some looked scared. Others couldn't stop staring. That's the Jungle Girl, someone whispered. The one that vanished. Years ago, wasn't it? 6, 7. The rumors spread like wildfire. A name surfaced from the dust of memory. Zara, the girl who disappeared without a trace during a family camping trip deep in the forest. Some said she'd been taken by a madman. Others believed she'd been lost to the wild. She was troubled, David replied quickly, withdrawn. Sometimes erratic. After her mother died, she changed. You can't imagine how hard it was. Amika didn't look away, and when she vanished, we thought she'd snapped. Joyce always said she needed professional help. His tone cooled slightly, but she refused therapy, got violent once or twice. As if on cue, Joyce entered the room, perfectly dressed, perfectly poised. "I warned David," she said, lips tight. Zara was not well. "We tried to help her, but she didn't want it. She was unstable. Honestly, we thought she might have harmed herself. It broke us." Amika kept her face neutral, but inside, something twisted. Their voices were too rehearsed, their grief too polished. And underneath it all, a faint but distinct disgust when they spoke about the girl they were supposed to have mourned. She placed a phone on the table. It was recording not secretly. She had told them beforehand, as procedure required. What she hadn't told them was that Zara, back at the center, was listening on the other end. There was a silence on the line for several seconds. Then a faint rustling, a breath, and then Zara broke. The sob came without warning, sharp and raw, cutting through the line like a scream underwater. "He's lying," she choked, her voice shaking. "He left me there." Amika held the phone gently, her hand trembling. "Zara, I begged," the girl said. "He told me to wait." I screamed. I ran after him. He didn't stop. He turned his back. The line went quiet for a second. Then a softer, almost whispered confession. She made him choose her. He chose. David stood abruptly. "This is inappropriate. That girl needs help. This performance." Amika didn't move. "She survived in the wild for 5 years. Alone, she's not performing, Mr. Rousset. She's remembering." Joyce's mask cracked just a bit. "You can't believe her. She's disturbed. Look at what she's become. Amaka rose slowly, calm but resolute. What she's become is a child who learned to survive predators. And now she has someone to fight for her. She gathered her bag and left without another word, the phone still in hand. In that moment, something shifted. The line between caseworker and child blurred. This wasn't just protocol anymore. Zara's pain had reached into Amaka's chest and wrapped itself around her resolve like fire. The girl had been buried and forgotten by people who were supposed to love her. Now she was resurfacing, bloody but breathing hand. Amaka would not let her drown again. No matter how rich David had become, no matter how carefully he'd rewritten the past. This was the moment Amaka chose a side. And it was Zara's . The air grew tighter each day, like a noose slowly cinching around the truth. Zara's reappearance didn't just crack open old wounds, it threatened to tear down the carefully built image of a man who had become nearly untouchable. David Asay, now a celebrated businessman and philanthropist in Abuja, had spent years crafting a persona of benevolence and leadership. A missing daughter, long presumed dead, was a quiet tragedy he had let fade. But her return, wild, wounded, and unwilling to keep silent, was a spark in dry grass. He struck first. Within days of Amaka's visit, David filed a formal claim. Zara, he said, was mentally unstable, suffering from severe delusions and trauma-induced paranoia. He requested, urgently and with all due legal decorum, that she be placed in a secure psychiatric facility for her own protection and, notably, removed from the influence of overzealous social workers with no psychological expertise. Amaka read the court documents in stunned silence. The language was clinical, polite, and brutal. David's lawyers painted Zara as a threat to herself, to others. They cited her unverified recollections, her paranoid behaviors, and Joyce's new, sworn affidavit, which claimed Zara had attacked her with a knife at age 14. There were no records, no incident reports. But the paper trail didn't matter, because now all the original files were gone. The missing persons report lost Zara's school records, incomplete, her medical file from before her disappearance, purged from the hospital system. He was erasing her again, but this time she wasn't alone. Amaka contacted an old friend, Tund Bello, a fiery human rights lawyer known for taking on impossible cases and speaking truth to power. He had a reputation for courtroom drama and a heart that leaned toward the broken. When he met Zara, he didn't greet her like a victim. He greeted her like a witness to something sacred. They're afraid of your story, he told her, because they know how powerful it is. Zara didn't reply, but her fingers clenched the hem of her sleeve tighter than before. The case spread like wildfire. A local journalist picked up the thread, then a national blog. Then came the social media wave. Photos of Zara frail, watchful, eyes dark with wilderness circulated with captions like, "The girl who lived, the forest queen. She survived the jungle. Now she fights the system." The public fascination grew, some out of empathy, others out of curiosity. But the tide turned against David faster than he expected. He fought back with everything he had. A smear campaign emerged. Zara had violent tendencies, fantasy delusions, and a history of emotional instability. Anonymous sources claimed she was troubled even as a child. Joyce gave a televised interview with crocodile tears and perfect makeup, claiming she'd tried to love Zara, but that the girl had always rejected her efforts. She wasn't right, she said, dabbing her eyes. We did everything we could. The attacks wore Zara down. Though she said little, her shoulders curled inward more each day. She began flinching at the sound of phones ringing. Her sleep grew erratic. She ate less. And then, one evening, she vanished. Amaka came home from the office to find Zara's cot empty. Her few belongings folded neatly on the bed. A note scribbled in shaky writing sat on the pillow. I don't want to fight anymore. For a second, Amaka couldn't breathe. The old fear crept in, the fear that the forest had called Zara back, or worse, that the pain had finally outrun her will to survive. She called Tund, called the police, called every contact at the shelter and every taxi line in town. She found, heard just before midnight, huddled in the corner of the abandoned schoolyard 2 blocks away, curled into herself like a wounded animal. Her eyes were red, her knees scraped raw. She didn't resist when Amaka knelt beside her. I can't do this, Zara whispered. I don't want to remember. I don't want to be anyone's story. I just want to disappear again. Amaka gathered her in her arms, trembling but steady. You don't have to survive anymore, she said softly. You get to live now. You get to be more than what they did to you. Zara broke down. For the first time since emerging from the trees, she sobbed with abandon, no longer holding. The tears were not silent. They were jagged and loud and full of years she'd had to bury. When court day came, she walked in slowly, flanked by Tund on one side and Amaka on the other. The courtroom was crowded, press, lawyers, observers, staring. David sat at the front, composed and expressionless. Joyce wore another white blouse and another mask of concern. Zara took the stand. Her voice was small at first, but she didn't look at them. She looked at the judge, at the crowd, at the ceiling if she had to, but not at the people who left her behind. He didn't forget me, she said, her voice trembling. He abandoned me. She told them what she remembered. The long drive, the trees, the silence after her father walked away, how she waited, how she screamed his name until her voice bled, how she starved, how she hid, how she wanted to die, and how she chose, again and again, not to. She spoke of animals and shadows, and the way people in the distance made her tremble more than hunger ever did. She spoke of loneliness, of hatred, of silence. When she finished, the room was still. David stared straight ahead. Joyce looked away. Tund placed a gentle hand on Zara's back as she stepped down from the witness stand, and Amaka met her at the foot of the steps, her eyes full. No matter what the verdict would say, no matter how long the legal process stretched, something had shifted permanently. Zara had spoken, and the world had listened. The courtroom was thick with tension so dense it seemed to steal the air from everyone's lungs. The polished floor, the clicking pens, the shifting chairs all faded beneath the weight of what was about to unfold. Zara sat in the second row, hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed forward, unreadable. She had already told her truth. Now it was David Osei's turn. He took the stand with his usual polisher, crisp navy suit, calm expression, and voice measured just enough to sound sincere without emotion. To the casual observer, he still looked every inch the respected man he had worked hard to become. But under Tund's steady cross-examination, cracks began to show. At first, David recited the rehearsed version. Troubled child, tragic loss of her mother, desperate attempts to care for her. Then the night she vanished, he claimed she ran away while he was getting fuel. He said he looked everywhere. I was terrified. We searched for days, he insisted. But when asked why the original police report no longer existed, why the school records were gone, why no official statements had been released to the press at the time, his answers grew thinner, more evasive. I trusted the police to handle it, he said, fingers tapping the wood of the witness box. I didn't want the media to make it worse. She was already unstable. Tund leaned in slightly. Is that why you never mentioned the trip to the forest in any official documents? David blinked. What trip? And that was the moment everything shifted. A quiet rustle moved through the court as Tund looked to the judge. Your Honor, the court will now hear the statement of an anonymous witness. The identity has been verified privately, but the witness feared retaliation. The judge nodded. A man's voice crackled through the speaker system, older, steady, but laced with guilt. I was David Osei's driver back then. I drove him and the girl, Zara, out of Lagos. He said it was a getaway. We stopped on a dirt road near the forest. He told me to wait in the car. I stayed for maybe 20 minutes. When he came back, she wasn't with him. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. He looked shaken, pale, told me, "Don't ever speak of this. It's a family matter." I knew something was wrong, but I needed the job. I stayed quiet. I'm sorry. I should have said something then. Zara didn't move, but her breath hitched audibly. The truth was no longer just hers to carry. Now it stood in the open, ugly and undeniable. David's composure crumbled. He rubbed his face, muttered something no one caught. Then came the final blow from the last person anyone expected. Joyce stood up, voice loud, raw and shaking. Stop lying, David. Just stop. He turned to her, startled. You were too weak to raise a grieving girl, she spat. Too weak to fight for her. So you threw her away. You let her ruin your image in your mind before she ever even did anything. And I let you. God help me, I let you. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Joyce's hands trembled at her sides. For the first time, her perfect exterior cracked, revealing a woman eaten alive by resentment and regret. Then Tund turned to the judge. Your Honor, if it pleases the court, we have one final piece of evidence. Recently recovered, he placed a small recording device on the table. The audio had been cleaned up, but the scratchiness of time was still there. What followed was a sound that cut deeper than any testimony. A child's voice. Small, frantic. Daddy. Please, please don't go. I'll be better. I promise I'll be good. Please don't leave me here. Daddy, Daddy, then rustling, a door slamming. Silence, the recording ended. No one breathed. A few people covered their mouths. The judge froze. Ton's expression was solemn. David's face collapsed. His shoulders caved in, the weight of years pressing down in a single instant. For once, he had no words, no charm, no defense, only the echoes of a little girl's voice reminding everyone that what had been done to her wasn't imagined, wasn't exaggerated. It had happened, and now the whole world knew. Zara sat quietly, trembling but upright. She didn't cry, she didn't move, but in her stillness was something new, not silence born of fear, but of release. Asterisk, she had been buried alive in memory. And now, the earth had broken open. Asterisk, everyone could see her. Everyone could hear her. And no one could deny her any more. Asterisk, the ruling came on a humid Thursday afternoon, with the courtroom packed and the city holding its breath. The judge, solemn and deliberate, declared Zara legally emancipated. She was no longer under the guardianship of any parent, no longer tethered to the man who had discarded her in the shadows of the forest. The court also announced that David Assay would be remanded into custody, facing formal charges of child endangerment, obstruction of justice, and falsifying legal records. As he was led away in handcuffs, the cameras caught only the back of his bowed head. There was no statement, no denial, only silence. Asterisk, Zara didn't watch him go. Her eyes were fixed on Amaka, who smiled through tears and held her hand with quiet pride. For the first time in years, Zara wasn't afraid of what came next. The battle was over. The rebuilding had begun. Asterisk, she was enrolled in a special university, bridging program for displaced youth teenagers who had fallen through the cracks and were climbing their way back. The coursework was gentle but meaningful. Basic academics, creative arts, survival psychology. Zara gravitated toward the sketchpad and charcoal, drawing tangled trees and shadowy animals at first, then soft faces and bright skies. Her therapist said she was processing. Zara just said it helped to draw things she didn't have words for yet. Asterisk, the jungle had made her resilient, but the classroom made her imagine a future. Asterisk, Amaka, now her legal guardian until she turned 18, kept her grounded. She didn't hover, she didn't press. She just showed up with tea, with late-night conversations, with love that didn't demand anything in return. She let Zara take the lead, and in doing so, helped her learn how to walk on solid ground again. Asterisk, one day, Zara stood in front of a group of teen girls, some from shelters, some from broken homes, some with trauma in their eyes she recognized too well. She told them her story, not from the place of a victim, but as someone who had emerged from the darkest place and lived to speak of it. Asterisk, they left me there to die, she said simply, but the jungle didn't break me, so no man ever will. Asterisk, there was no applause, just stillness, then nods. Some eyes filled with tears, others with something brighter. Hope, asterisk, her voice, once buried under years of silence, began to spread. A journalist who had followed her case offered her a platform to write her story in her own words. Zara accepted. She stayed up for 2 nights, pacing, scribbling, deleting. But in the end, her truth spilled out like rain on dry ground. Asterisk, they left me to die. I chose to live. Asterisk, that was the headline. Beneath it, she wrote not only about the betrayal and abandonment, but about survival, about forgiveness not for them, but for herself, about power reclaimed. She didn't ask for pity. She offered a mirror to other girls like her. Asterisk, the article went viral, not because of scandal, but because of its strength. People shared it with hashtags like #ForestQueen and #ZaraLived. Messages poured in, some from survivors, some from strangers, some from girls still in hiding. Zara read every one. Asterisk, she didn't see herself as brave, just as someone who had no choice but to keep going. Asterisk, but now, for the first time, she was going forward not just for herself, but for others too. The jungle had taught her how to survive. The world was now teaching her how to live. Asterisk, the forest stood quiet beneath a soft amber sky, its edges brushing the horizon like an old memory. Zara stood on a gentle hill overlooking the trees, her breath steady, her steps sure. This place, once a prison of shadows and silence, now felt different. It had not changed, but she had. She walked with purpose down a narrow, overgrown path. The foliage brushing against her fingertips like ghosts she no longer feared. At the base of an old iroko tree, half swallowed by roots and earth, she knelt. The ground remembered her. She dug slowly, her fingers brushing against rusted metal. The tin box was still there, exactly where she'd left it. She opened it with a reverence reserved for things both sacred and painful. Inside, wrapped in brittle cloth, was a faded photograph of her mother, smiling wide, holding Zara as a toddler. Next to it, folded and worn from years in the dark, was a small note scrawled in a child's hand. "If you come back, I'm here." Zara held it to her chest, eyes closed. She remembered the night she wrote Itha cold, the fear, the hope that maybe someone would find her, that maybe love would return the way it had once existed. She sat there for a long time, the forest humming gently around her. Then, with steady hands, she lit a match. The flame caught quickly, curling the paper inward until it turned to ash in her palm. As the last wisp floated away, she whispered, "I'm not here anymore. I'm free." The sun dipped low, casting long shadows behind her. But Zara didn't look back. She stood, brushed the dirt from her knees, and began walking not as the broken child who had once waited beneath that tree, but as the woman who had risen from it. She walked into the fading light not to survive, but to live.